أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to episode 7 of A Drop from the Sea. Inshallah, we will continue with our stories from this book of Ayatullah Shubayri Zanjani, Jurayee Az Darya. We had reached entry number 15. Inshallah, today we will read entry number 15 as well as begin reading from entry number 16, which is Akhund Khorasani. Entry number 15 is regarding a scholar by the name of Hakim Jahangir-Khan Qashqayee. Hakim Jahangir-Khan. Ayatullah Shubayri Zanjani says that I have heard from my father, who heard directly from Ayatullah Burujardi. And Ayatullah Burujardi himself heard from Ayatullah Sheikh Hasan Ali Nakhudki Isfahani, who is one of a famous scholar who was well known for mysticism as well. This Ayatollah Sheikh Hasan Ali, he says that we had moved from Isfahan to Mashhad. We had relocated from Isfahan to Mashhad, and we used to live there. But one time we visited Isfahan, just to visit our home city, and we wanted to go to the graves of our teachers as well as people who had done favors to us while we were young and while we were studying and growing up. And when we went there, we wanted to go pay respects to them on their graves. This Ayatollah Sheikh Hasan Ali Isfahani, he used to have two teachers. One was this Hakim Jahangir-Khan and another scholar by the name of Akhund Khorasani. Jahangir-Khan was a very well-off and rich scholar, and he had two rooms in Madrasa Sadr, one of the madrasas over there in Isfahan called Madrasa Sadr, and he had two rooms. One was a place of his own residence, and one was basically a sort of a storage room inside the school. So he used to own these two, rooms or two, places of residence. Akhund Khorasani, on the other hand, was a very poor scholar, and he would be paid about 3 tomans a month by one of the local individuals who was very well off, and he would basically pay him a stipend of 3 tomans. Now Jahangir Khan, he passed away in 1328 Hijri, which is around 1328 Hijri is about 1910. And Akhund Khorasani passed away 5 years after Jahangir Khan, which is 1915. So this Sheikh Hasan Ali Nakhudki, he says that when we went to the grave, when we went back to Isfahan, we tried to find the grave of Jahangir Khan, but we could not find his grave. And whoever we used to ask, nobody would know where his grave was. Then after a long time, we finally located his grave in a place called Tekyeh Moaven. Tekyeh Moaven is a very famous graveyard in Isfahan, and many Ulema and scholars are buried there. If you go to Isfahan, definitely it's one of the places to visit. So this is Ayatollah Sheikh Hasan Ali. He is saying that we found his grave in some random corner of Tekyeh Moaven. But whenever we would ask people in the city, where is the grave of Akhund Khorasani, everyone would tell us immediately. Even the average person on the street would know where the grave of Akhund Khorasani is. So Sheikh Hasan Ali, he says that we were very confused. How come everybody knows the grave of Akhund Khorasani, who was relatively poor? Nobody, people used to support him financially, but Hakim Jahangir Khan was a very rich man. How come nobody knows his grave, but everybody knows Akhund Khorasani's grave? And he says later on, we learned that one of the students of Jahangir Khan, he used to have a Tekyeh. Tekyeh is very interesting. These used to be very interesting buildings you can find them in many places in Iran. Tekyehs are basically what you call in Urdu like Imam Barga, right, or the Husayniya. So in Iran, they used to have these things called Tekyeh. Tekyeh is from they were popularized mostly in the Qajar era. If you go on my Instagram, you will find a lot of pictures I have taken and visited some of these tekyehs, and they used to belong to, how some of the centers, Imam Bargas that we have, some rich person from the community, he will come and they will, find this, sponsor the center or pay for the center, and they will run the center the way they want. They will bring their speakers in and they will, run the programs the way they want. So these tekyes were the same way. Like they would be run by rich people or some individual or some family. So one of the students of Hakim Jahangir-Khan used to have a tekyeh in Tekyeh Moaven. So in one of the areas or one of the corners of this graveyard, he used to have a tekyeh. So a tekyeh was just for azadari. And this student said to his teacher that, please, when you pass away, please bury yourself in the, somewhere in this, somewhere near this tekyeh or inside the tekyeh. And if you get buried there, I want to bury myself besides you, towards your feet. I want my grave besides your feet, towards the end of your feet. But so please bury yourself over there. So Jahangir Khan, when he passes away, he had told his family to bury him over there, where his student had asked him. Now, so Jahangir Khan is buried there. But when this individual, this student of Jahangir Khan who had made this request, when he passes away, his family did not bury him in that takyeh, and they had basically abandoned that land and that takyeh, and nobody from his this student's family would even go there or visit that place, and eventually it became a very and the reason for that was, by the way, because that area of Tekyeh Moaven was a very not a very suitable place. The land was kind of not appropriate, and they basically abandoned it. So it became an abandoned place. So, and that student basically got buried somewhere else. Akhund Khorasani, on the other hand, when he passes away, his family goes and he gets buried somewhere, and one of the individuals who is buried there, or sorry, some random individual gets buried besides Akhund Khorasani, and his family members see him in his dream. So sorry, Akhund Khorasani gets buried somewhere, and there is some individual who is also buried there, and he comes in the dream of some of his family members, and he says that I was having a very difficult time in my grave, but ever since this scholar has been buried here, the sheikh has been buried here, Akhund Khorasani, my situation has become really good, and I'm in a really good state now. I'm not in the difficulties and the hardship that I was before. And this story becomes famous, and it becomes people start spreading it in the city, and therefore people wanted to bury their loved ones besides Akhund Khorasani's grave, and that's why Akhund Khorasani's grave became very, very famous. And this is a story that Ayatullah Zanjani is quoting from his father, who quotes from Ayatullah Borujerdi, and Ayatullah Borujerdi is quoting it directly from Ayatullah Sheikh Hassan Ali Nakhudki, and Nakhudki is Ayatullah Sheikh Hassan Ali Nakhudki himself is telling him his own story, that this is what the story was. We experienced this. We went to Isfahan. We were looking for the grave of Hakim Jahangir Khan, and essentially this is the whole story that they experienced. Okay, so that is the story of Hakim Jahangir Khan. Now, the next entry number 16, is of Akhund Mulla Muhammad Kazim Khorasani, who died in 1911. Now, Akhund Khorasani is one of the top scholars of the last, the last century, last 150 years in Shia scholarship. If you are going to study in the seminary, he is going to be one of the scholars whose books you will be exposed to, whose books you might even study, and he's a scholar that you're gonna hear his name all the time in the Hausa. So there are some names you hear in the seminary all the time, even though people outside the seminary may have never heard of these ulama, right? So Sheikh Ansari or Akhund Khorasani and Mirza Naini, and these ulama that we used to hear their names all the time because we're studying their books, studying their works. So Akhund Khorasani is one of those scholars. So it's a very long entry. In this episode, we might not be able to finish all of it, but I will try to read some of the stories, some of the entries. And then once again, Akhund Khorasani's stories come again in the later volumes as well. Okay, there's a whole book published about, biography published about Akhund Khorasani as well. Okay, so there are multiple stories in this. The first story by Ayatollah Zanjani is about the Tawheed of Akhund Khorasani. He says that Ayatollah Jamaluddin Gulpaygani, who is from the scholars of Sayyid Suluk, meaning he's a scholar who has inclinations towards Irfan and mysticism. He used to say that nobody had the Tawheed of Akhund Khorasani. Agha Shah Habadi would say that my father, Ayatollah Shah Habadi, used to really love Akhund Khorasani. And even though he used to love Ayatollah Mirza Muhammad Taqi Shirazi as well, and would consider him to be a sign of taqwa, but he deemed Akhund Khorasani even greater than him. Sayyid Ali, the son of Sayyid Jamal, would say that my father would only put up a picture of Akhund Khorasani in his room. Okay, so these are Sayyid Ali Gulpaygani, the son of Ayatollah Sayyid Jamal, Ayatollah Sayyid Jamal Gulpaygani, that my father would only put up the pictures of Akhund Khorasani in his room. So this very small entry, reason why he's quoting Ayatollah Shah Habadi, because Ayatollah Shah Habadi and these ulama are from the ulama of Sayyid Suluk, ulama of who are inclined towards mysticism. So that's why he's quoting these two ulama, two scholars who are inclined towards mysticism, who are all about Tawheed and God and the unity of God and all of that. So for them to say that nobody had the Tawheed of Akhund Khorasani, it's a big thing. Hence why he's quoting these two scholars. If anybody was wondering, what's the point? What's the point of this story? And the point of the story is that these great mystics are the ones praising the understanding that Ayatollah Akhund Khorasani had about Tawheed. So that is a very interesting. The second entry is about the love that Akhund Khorasani had towards students. He says, the father-in-law of Agha Mufatteh Hamadani, who's the father-in-law of Agha Mufatteh Hamadani is Agha Haidar. He was from the ulama of Hamadan, and I, meaning Ayatollah Shubayri Zanjani, I have met him. He was an old man, and I remember that he was against the Mashruta. Mashruta, by the way, so this Mashruta, or in Farsi they say Mashrute, or in English, the constitutional revolution. This is going to be a very important event in the life of Akhund Khorasani. So you will see the Mashruta and the constitutional revolution being mentioned quite often in the biographies of Akhund Khorasani or in the stories of Akhund Khorasani. And it actually led to a very heated dispute and a very serious difference of opinion amongst the Maraj at that time. Inshallah, we will talk about this stuff in detail later on. But anyways, this father-in-law of Agha Mufatteh Hamadani says that he was against the constitutional revolution. And so reason why he's saying this is because Akhund Khorasani was pro-constitutional revolution. So even though the father-in-law of Agha Mufatteh Hamadani was against it, the constitutional revolution, he would say that Akhund Khorasani was still very lenient and easygoing, and he used to show a lot of love and care towards students. And as we will see in a later story, inshallah in this episode, how he used to deal with students who were anti-Akhund Khorasani because of this issue of the constitutional revolution. So let's go to this third story. Okay, third story. This third story is about a student by the name of Mirza Ali Akbar. Ali Akbar, what's his full name? Nawqani. Ali Akbar Nawqani. Okay, and this Ali Akbar Nawqani is the one transmitting this story. He says that I went to Najaf with my wife, and 2 days later, we realized we didn't know anyone in Najaf. My wife was expecting and was praying that her birth, and he said, I was praying that may her birth be delayed because I don't know anyone over here in the city. I just came. Eventually, the time of her birth came, and I didn't know where to take her. I didn't know the house of any midwife, and I didn't know anyone who I could even ask. And I only knew where the house of Akhund Khorasani was. And he says, I had no choice. I had no choice but to go to the house of Akhund Khorasani. And then he said, maybe if I knock on the door, someone will come out, and maybe someone from the house of Akhund Khorasani may be able to lead me to the house of a midwife. He says it was past midnight, and I was so embarrassed because who goes to the house of a marja past midnight, to disturb them. He says, but it was such a, I was in such sheer necessity that I just didn't have any choice. So he said, I went to the house, I knocked on the door, and a voice came saying, who is it? So I realized someone is awake. So I said, I have a request. And he says, a few minutes later, someone comes down with a light, holding the light. And I realized that it was Akhund Khorasani himself. He says, my throat went dry. And I was in shock. What am I supposed to say to Akhund Khorasani? I didn't think Akhund Khorasani will come out of the door. Maybe someone else from the house will come. So my throat went dry. And when Akhund Khorasani saw that, I was left in shock and awe and I couldn't even speak, he grabbed my hand and he said, my son, come with me so I can see what's wrong with you. What is the problem? How can I help you? And he spoke in such a caring way that I was finally able to speak. So I told him that I'm new to the city and I'm looking for the house of, a midwife who can help me and my wife with birth. So Akhund Khorasani took my name and the address of where I was staying, and he said, let's go. And so this Sheikh Nawqani is saying, I don't remember whether Akhund went inside to get changed or not, I don't remember. But he says he came out and he had the light with him, the lantern. And I wanted to take the lantern away from him so I can carry it myself, but Akhund Khorasani said, no, I will bring it myself, I can carry it myself, don't worry. So he started to walk in front of me and I was behind him. We went to the door of a midwife and a man opened the door. So when he saw Akhund Khorasani, he quickly asked him, please come inside, Akhund. And Akhund Khorasani said, no, just call the midwife quickly, we're in a rush. Few moments later, a midwife comes out. An old lady comes out, she's a midwife. Akhund says to her that, oh midwife, the wife of this man is going to give birth soon. And so go to her and don't leave her until the entire birthing process is complete. And, don't leave her until she's fully well and recovered and she's able to kind of do things on her own and move around and so on. So they came back and eventually, they came back with the midwife and eventually Akhund Khorasani was going to go his own way towards his own house. And he gave the lantern to this scholar and the midwife. And this is a time where, Sheikh Nawqani is saying that 100 years ago, there's no lights, street lights. So Akhund says, don't worry, I know my way home. You take this light. And then he told this Ali Akbar Nawqani that, don't think for a moment that I'm going to sleep tonight. I will be awake till morning. And anything you need, you let me know. And give me an update when your wife has given birth. And, and he also gave me some money. Sheikh Nawqani says, I don't need money. And, I'm not in need of money. So Akhund Khorasani says, no, just keep it. And basically it was for the midwife. And he tells the midwife that anything you need in terms of money, it's on me. So this Mirza Ali Akbar Nawqani, he says that around morning time, around Sahar, a boy was born. But I was too shy to tell Akhund about this news. I didn't want to go back and disturb him. Next day around Maghrib, a scholar by the name of Sayyid Abul Qasim, who used to be one of the students and used to be near Akhund Khorasani, he came to my place and said that, Akhund Khorasani is very worried about you. He's been waiting for you to give him some update. So Sheikh Nawqani says, I went to Akhund and Akhund said to me, why did you not tell me what happened? I've been waiting all night. So I apologized. I told him, I'm sorry. So he asked, what was it, a boy or a girl? And he says it was a boy. So he says, then you can keep his name, Muhammad Kazim, in my memory. So Muhammad Kazim is the name of Akhund Khorasani. Over here, Ayatullah Shubayri Zanjani says that in the published biography of Akhund Khorasani, they didn't mention the name of this person. Okay, they didn't mention the name of this person, meaning the person who came to see Mirza Ali Akbar. But at the end of the day, he says that also in that biography, these details that, the name of the boy was Muhammad Kazim and so on, he says, is not mentioned and I've never heard this before. And then he says that in another version of the story, I have heard that Agha Nawqani actually wanted to go to meet Mirza Mahdi Kifai, who is the son of Akhund Khorasani. So this scholar, Sheikh Nawqani, Mirza Nawqani, knew the son of Akhund Khorasani and he wanted to go to his house to basically ask him for help. But when he goes to the house, Akhund Khorasani comes out, asks him, what's the problem? This Mirza Noqani says that I'm here for your son, I need some help. And Akhund says he's sleeping, I will come and help you. And basically, this whole story happens. Ayatullah Zanjani says that I have seen this Sheikh Mirza Ali Akbar Noqani. I have seen him, and he is the author of 3 treatises called Risaleh Noqani. So, Sheikh Ayatullah Zanjani has actually, seen him, which is very, very interesting. So this is one story, and I will end today's episode with this final story. This story is, when I read it many, many years ago, these type of stories really did impact me, and it really helped me become calm when it comes to dealing with differences of opinions, respecting each other, respecting people you don't agree with. This is very important, and you will see, especially in a situation where this story is being mentioned, where the dispute was essentially a dispute and a difference of opinion that is, that does dictate the fate of people and the future of people, right? But you see how Akhund Khorasani will deal with his opponents. So I want you all to listen to the story. This is Ayatollah Zanjani quoting. Look what he says. He says, in the biography of Akhund Khorasani, a story has been reported from very reliable transmitters. From Ayatullah Sayyid Muhammad Shahrudi, who hears from Agha Mirza Naini, and Ayatullah Sayyid Abdullah Shirazi, who hears from Agha Ziauddin Araki, and also Sheikh Muhammad Rashti, who hears from his father, Sheikh Abdul Hussein Rashti. So these 3 scholars, Mirza Naini, Agha Ziauddin Araki, and Sheikh Abdul Hussein Rashti, are students of Akhund Khorasani. They are from his contemporaries, and they have all transmitted this story. So this is a very, very reliable story. They say that Akhund Khorasani had accepted the Mashruta, meaning he was pro-constitutional revolution. He was pro-constitution. As I said, this whole constitutional revolution, it's a very, very complex history, but it is an important and a very important part of Iranian history and also Shi'i political history. It is extremely important to study this era, as well as the views of the ulama and so on. It requires, inshallah, its own episode, and definitely, I have said many times in the past, it is something that I will definitely, inshallah, in the future make a video on, because it is very interesting to study. And in fact, you cannot understand modern Iran and modern Persia, as well as the later developments that happened with the Shah and the Iranian Revolution and so on, unless you really understand this era. Okay, this is a very key time in history. So you guys can research that on your own for now, but this story is about the constitutional revolution. So Akhund Khorasani is very pro-constitution revolution. So one of his students, who was one of his great students, he basically left Akhund Khorasani because of this position, and he joined the camp of Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Kazim Tabatabai Yazdi. Okay, who was the other marja of that time? Ayatollah Kazim Tabatabai Yazdi, very important scholar, right? If you look at the other video where I have made, the most influential books of the last century, this is the same Muhammad Kazim Tabatabai Yazdi. I mentioned his book Al-Urwatul Wuthqa. This is the same scholar. So 2 giant scholars, 2 giant marjas. So this student of Akhund Khorasani, he leaves Akhund Khorasani because of this opinion that he gave. But he not just left him, he began to do sab and la'an of him. Sab meaning he started to curse, meaning use foul language at him. And he used to do la'an of him. One day, the people of this student's village, they come to him. Basically, the student needs money, and he's unable to even pay his rent, and he's really unable, he's in a very financially tough situation. So the students, so the people, from his village or from his district, they come to him, and they are all muqalladeen of Akhund Khorasani, and they have 80 coins with them. Okay, basically khums, they want to give khums, and they say to this student that, hey, we will give you these 80 coins if you come with us to Akhund Khorasani, and if Akhund Khorasani gives us permission, we will give this money to you. Now, this student is obviously very confused. What should I do? I need the money. I definitely need the money. It's Sahm Iman. But how can I go in the presence of Akhund Khorasani after I have done, I've sworn at him, I've used foul language against him, I've cursed him, and now I have to go to his house and tell him that these people want to give me money, and it's the permission of this money is because of is in your hands. But he says, he was in a very desperate situation, so he just kind of pressures himself and he goes. Okay, he goes to the house of Akhund Khorasani with these family members and people from his city. As soon as he enters the house of Akhund Khorasani realizes that, hey, this guy didn't come to my house to, pay respects to me or anything. He definitely must have come because he's in a desperate situation. He must have come because of some necessity. So as soon as the student enters, Akhund Khorasani stands up and begins to show the student so much respect. And he makes him sit beside him. And he starts to show him respect and everything. And then he whispers in the ear of the students, what can I do for you? What do you need? What can I do for you? So the student says that, look, these people have brought 80 coins and they want your permission to give it to me. So Akhund Khorasani tells one of the students that is sitting there. So some of his students are sitting there. He tells one of them to, get the bag which is full of coins from these people. And when they are about to give the bag to Akhund Khorasani, Akhund doesn't even touch it. And he says, why did you come to me? Why did you come to me when you have such a fadil, meaning such an amazing, scholar, a fadil and a muttaqi, such a scholar with so many great merits, and a God-conscious, full of taqwa person in your presence. Did you not know that his hands are like my hands? And whatever he says, it is as if I have said it. And Akhund Khorasani says, I don't need this bag. You can give this bag directly to this student, directly to this scholar. So Akhund Khorasani is praising this student of his, who has obviously now left him, and he has been swearing at him and cursing him. But in this situation, he doesn't want the student to feel humiliated, especially because money is involved. So he is praising him, and he's saying this person is fadil and muttaqi. So the people started to think that maybe Akhund Khorasani doesn't know who this person, maybe he didn't recognize him. So they think maybe it's, he doesn't recognize him. So they ask Akhund Khorasani, oh, how is Agha Tabadabai doing? So they want to provoke. So he says something negative, and then this student will say something in defense of him, and there will be a escalation, which a lot of people like to do this kind of stuff in the presence of ulama. When there's difference of opinions, they like to provoke and incite this type of a discussion. So Akhund Khorasani quickly says he had a paper and a pen in his hands. He was apparently writing some notes for his usul class, and he says that I was coming back from my lesson, or I was going to my lesson, and I met him on the way, and I asked him how he was doing, and alhamdulillah, he's doing good. So Akhund says, yeah, he's doing good, mashallah, alhamdulillah, he's doing good. I met him actually, and everything's all good. So anyways, these people weren't able to get anything out of this, and Akhund Khorasani had praised the scholar, and he got his 80 coins. Once they all left, Akhund Khorasani obviously took the student, he bid him farewell all the way till the exit of his house door, and he bid him farewell. When they all left, Akhund Khorasani comes back, and now his students are sitting there, and he says, we believe in the obligation of acknowledging the constitution. We believe it is wajib, and Agha Tabatabai believes it's haram. And this is just a difference of opinion in a very particular matter, like all the other differences of opinions that exist. It makes no sense for you to interfere in the difference of opinion of two jurists. Okay? معنا نداره در اختلاف نظر بین دو فقیه شما بیایید دخالت کنید. اوکی؟ شما به چه مناسبت دخالت میکنید؟ What on earth are you guys getting involved? Why on earth are you guys poking your nose in this? This is something so, it has a message for all of us. It has a message for all of us. I don't know when we will learn actually from these ulama and their stories. We still end up doing things that we read these stories, we hear them, we say, MashaAllah, amazing, Akhund Khorasani was amazing. But when are we gonna actually follow these ulama in this conduct? He says, in jahat na darat. He's like, there's no agenda here. There's no, personal agendas over here. It's just a difference of opinion. So why do you have to get involved? So the students say, in aqai ke alan raft, shumara la'an mikunad. He's like, this student that just left, he does la'an of you. Akhund Khorasani says, man be kutub fiqhi fuqaha muraji kardam wa anha ra fahs kardam. He says, I've been studying all the books of the fuqaha and I have exhaustively looked into them. ولی در هیچ یک از اینها ندیدم که بگویند از شرایط استحقاق سهم امام ارادت به آخوند خراسانی است. He says, I've researched all the books of fiqh and nowhere did I see that one of the conditions for receiving the sahm imam of the khums money, I have not seen that one of the conditions for having the right to receive the khums is that you must love Akhund Khorasani. Right? He said, but this is how it is, right? We love to give money. Does this person like me? Does this person like my marja? Does this person like his, which scholars does he like? Which scholar does she like? But these are not the conditions of giving Sahm Imam, right? This is a student, and Akhund Khorasani believes he's a muttaqi person. He has a difference of opinion, like all the other differences of opinion. Why should I, excommunicate him and deprive him of a right that he has? In Islam, there's no such thing as you must like me or my marja or my scholar for you to receive this money. As I said, these stories are not just stories for bedtime and so on. These are stories, we're reading these because they have a message for us, practical lessons for all of us. So now Ayatullah Zanjani is quoting again. He says that, no Ayatullah Zanjani. Or Ayatullah Zanjani is quoting the story from those three ulama. He says, he's continuing to quote it. He says, after this event finished, the story finished, the next day, that these students of Akhund Khorasani, as well as those three ulama that came in the beginning, Mirza Naini, Aqad Ziauddin, and Sheikh Rashti, they were all present in the house of Akhund Khorasani. And that student, he came again. He came and he does a lot of respect. It shows a lot of respect to Akhund Khorasani, and he begins to thank him. And Akhund Khorasani becomes upset and he says, Agha, oh person, oh student, you have a belief that the opinion that I have is not true. This is your belief. So as long as you have this belief, you go and do your religious duty, whatever you feel is your religious duty. You should not change your opinion and your conduct just because I gave you, some money, just because of this money that you got. And I consider you to be a fadil person, someone who has a lot of merits and someone who has a lot of taqwa. I do believe you are like that. And as long as I have this belief, as long as I believe you are a person who is God conscious, then I will have my love towards you, and you can continue to work on your beliefs and your whatever opinion you have, and that's it. Go live your life. You have a religious duty, and I also have a religious duty, and none of us should basically turn this into a personal issue, basically. Right? None of us should turn this into a personal issue. You have your religious duty, I have my religious duty. I believe this is wajib. Your scholar, for example, believes it is haram, and that's it. Let's leave it at that. Khalas. Why do you have to make it personal and turn it into like a personal issue? And that's why Ayatollah Zanjani says at the end, Marhum Akhund Adame Ajibi Bude. Ajibi Bude. He was a very, very fascinating figure and a scholar, right? What an amazing story that we have here. And as I said, reading these stories early on in the Hawza, it does, and it did change and shape my perspective? How do we deal with differences of opinions? How do we deal with people that will arrive at different conclusions? One will say something is haram, one will say something is wajib, one will say something is, you know, some belief exists, someone will say this belief does not exist. We haven't, unfortunately, yet learned the framework of dealing with difference of opinions, even though several books have now been published in Farsi. The ethics of difference of opinion, the ethics and the etiquettes of dealing with difference of opinions, all of that. But these are, still in book format, and it's not really something that we have trained ourselves or our communities in dealing with. We freak out, we excommunicate very quickly. But over here, and very quickly we forget the basic principles that Islam has, laid down, keeping the sanctity of a believer. This is what Akhund Khorasani was doing over here. Even though if the student was wrong, the student should not have done la'an and sab, right? But Akhund Khorasani has to do his duty. He's saying this is a student, he has his respect, he has his dignity, and I should not use this as an excuse to, take away his right. He deserves, this Sahmi Imam, and he should get it. Why should I make it personal and say, oh, I'm not going to give it to you because, you did la'an of me? No, he didn't make it personal. It takes a big heart to do something like that, and it takes a lot of depth and understanding of your religious duty and religiosity and akhlaq to be, to live your life like that. Unfortunately, most of us are not even close to this level, but at the very least, these type of stories can inspire us. There's a similar story like this by Shatibi. Shatibi is an Andalusian Sunni scholar who used to live in Spain, Andalusia. He also has something very similar like this in one of the introductions to one of his book, where he says, like, why are these little individuals getting involved in poking their noses in the difference of opinions between the mujtahideen and the scholars who have their ijtihad, and they're doing their own thing, and the mujtahideen themselves are not getting involved with one another. They're not making things personal, but the muqallideen and the people and the followers, they unfortunately make things worse than they actually are. So this is also, Akhund Khorasani is showing practically how these differences of opinions should not interfere with other responsibilities, other duties, your akhlaq, and so on. We are not done with the stories of Akhund Khorasani, but because this episode became longer, inshallah, I'll wrap it up here. We will continue in the next episode with this chapter, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.